listening to America First Radio.
And we're gonna win, and we're gonna make America great again!
Here is your host, Paul Adams.
This is Paul Adams, and welcome back to America First Radio. Some good news. Let's start off with the good news. Mr. Trump goes to Louisiana. He brings along with him an 18-wheeler with 70,000 pounds of supplies for the Louisiana flood victims. They just love him down there. In the meantime, Hillary has a much-needed rest, and Obama is improving his golf game. Mr. Trump has demonstrated by his gestures in Louisiana that he truly, truly loves America. We've all known that. We've sensed it, but, actions are louder than words. While we know now for sure, it's confirmed, Obama doesn't give a rat's behind about America. He never did, never will. Any president who replaces the Stars and Stripes flag with a white flag on top of the White House logo is not for America. But there's a whole lot more to indict this traitor, and I will come back to him a little bit later near the end of this podcast. I just love how Mr. Trump is being molded right now. Can you see God's hand in this? Because I can. Our prayers for him are working. He has changed from a year ago. When you hear him talk, his speeches are forceful, they are crystal clear, there's no room for misunderstanding, no ambiguity. He's poised, fearless, and believe me, you need to be fearless if you're running for president. You need to have titanium balls to do this job, folks, because truly, he is putting his life on the line. He not only wants to clean house in Congress, to get rid of the corruption, but he also wants to reopen 9/11. Any idea what that means? Do you have any idea how many countries will be implicated in a new investigation, let alone senior government officials in the U.S.? When I first heard him say he was going to reopen 9/11, I knew immediately, this guy's for real. Now, I can spend 5 hours here on 9/11. I've done more research online on 9/11 than anything else. So I know we need a new 9/11 investigation because a lot does not add up. In my books, Mr. Trump deserves 3 Purple Hearts. One is just not enough. But I am very, very strong believer in prayer, that heaven will take him out of harm's way and that any weapon formed against him will only backfire on his enemies. I really and truly believe that. Just like I'm sure Hillary believes that her coven of witches can curse and hex and defeat this movement. You see, you can't trump the prayers of a righteous people who are trying to live right. The key here is trying to live right because no one is perfect. We need to turn to God. That new morality of drugs, sex, and the occult is a very old immorality that leads to destruction. It leads to nowhere. Mr. Trump has gone from a branding guru who used his well-honed skill set a year ago to distinguish himself in a crowded, packed field of 17 contestants, because that's the only way you can position yourself in a crowded field. And he has transformed himself into someone who distinctly and succinctly sets forth his economic, national security, and foreign policies. He has always loved America. This is not debatable. If you look back through the years and listen to interviews of him with Oprah and others when he discusses America, he has always been a dyed-in-the-wool, true blue, through and through patriot. Had he started out, though, in the primaries by trying to imitate his competitors, by sounding wonky, by delivering policy speeches, he would have never come this far. He would not have stood out. Now, when I listen to him, I get spiritual confirmation every time that this is the man of the hour, the man God has chosen to lead this nation. The man who has been prepped and shaped and forged over the years into hardened steel to make America greater than it has ever been before. With every fiber of my being, with all my soul, I believe that. But the victory will not be handed to us. We all need to do our part. We need to sacrifice. For me, that means I don't watch the Olympics while I write and tweet and design meme after meme. From the moment I wake up to the moment I close my eyes at night, all I think about is America, America. How to convince others to wake up. How to better promote Mr. Trump. How to broadside Hillary. So we each need to do our part. This is our last chance, folks. Altogether, we need to clear the way for him. Let's stop nitpicking and criticizing his human frailties. Look first into our own faults before we criticize him. And ask, could we do what he is doing? We all have faults. And look, compared to Hillary's diabolical misadventures, Donald Trump is an archangel. Now, the Vatican should beautify him into sainthood, because we may never again have another man like Donald Trump, ever. His whole life has been a preparation for this epic moment in American history. And that is a little worrisome, because what will happen to America after he leaves the scene, after his 2 terms are over? Does it take a billionaire nationalist of his caliber to keep the nation free of globalists? So we need to fix this along the way before his term expires. I've already talked about my vision of a solution of how we could give the reins of power back to the people with a secured U.S. national citizens account and make it a government of, by, and for the people, not one that is of, by, and for the elite and the special interest groups. So all these years, Mr. Trump has had the inside track on politics. And you know, they say to know your enemy, sometimes you have to embrace him. And he chose, very wisely, not to incorporate their lingo and MO. And frankly, folks, for him to sound like a run-of-the-mill politician would be the kiss of death. Marco Rubio, Jeb Bush, and all the other die-hard scripted robots, including the stiff Mitt Romney or 3CPO Al Gore. He moves like 3CPO in Star Wars, as far as I'm concerned. The entire establishment, especially this Tom Coleman, who looks like he has the imagination and the creativity of a mollusk. The guy is clearly propped up by the special interest. They told him, if you want the payola to continue, you need to bash Trump. So all these SOBs just don't get it. They simply don't get it. See, they can't speak off the cuff, because when they do, they sound like contorted pretzels. So they rely on focus group, filtered talking points, the well-rehearsed sound bites designed to evoke an emotional response. They are not basing any of their comments on facts. These sound bites can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in consultation fees, folks. Don't kid yourself. And Mr. Trump is doing it for nothing. One of my favorite lines from Mr. Trump's recent speeches was, "We are going to make this a government of the people once more. This is our chance. This is it. This is it. Your last chance." And when he said that, he said it with such concern, such passion, such import. The earth stood still there for a second. He was at that point like a father to America, like a new founding father. Because we really do need a new foundation. The old one is cracked and rotting. This speech, that soundbite, for me, was Donald Trump's finest moment. Which now takes me to the gloomy, doomy news. I don't like being so negative. I like a good laugh. I like putting a smile on people's face. But, you know, we have to be real. A lot of what I'm going to be saying may sound like I'm speaking in tongues. Trust me, folks, many people much more awake than myself talk this language. The reason you don't speak it is because it's not heard in your sitcoms, in your mainstream media, and if it is at all, it's ridiculed. It's always ridiculed. Of course, no one ridicules the occult. Strange, isn't it? In recent news, Loretta Lynch, at a UN speech, announced the formation of a global police force to combat violent extremism in the U.S. Now, mind you, only in the United States. Sounds to me like the New World Order is taking another baby step here. And what do we hear from the mainstream media? They make us see what they want us to see. We need to see things from various vantage points. That's why we need to rely on the alternative media. For me, there are various vantage points. I use the analogy of going from ground zero to 10,000 feet, 50,000 feet, and so forth, up to 200,000 feet. So I'm going to take you up to 10,000 feet. The GOP is still at it trying to knock off Donald Trump. And we just heard from the League of 50 who are not endorsing him. There's a note here to the GOP and the DNC establishment at the 10,000-foot level. The problem is not Trump. The problem is you. The people hate you. They want you out of power. They want you forever gone. You were supposed to be the patriots, the guardians of the republic. Instead, you have become super predators that have sucked the life out of this country to enrich yourselves. You facilitated every one of Obama's initiatives, and therefore you are globalists, not conservatives. So wipe that label off your calling cards. Hypocrites, you're finished. When a blue-eyed, fair-skinned Pocahontas lives in a $5 million mansion, something is very wrong at the top of the GOP food chain. Why didn't you bark up that tree? But you didn't. Listen to Elizabeth Warren, though, here testify in this clip that Hillary Clinton is in bed with Wall Street. This is a gem. This is from 2004.
Quick, right to the heart of it. I go over the law. It's a complex law. Went over the economics, showed her the graphs, showed her the charts, and she got it. Within 20 minutes, she could play where the rest of it would come. Well, then that will mean this part's happened. That will mean this has happened. I said, yes, that's right. And at the end of the conversation, Mrs. Clinton stood up. She said, let's get our picture taken, which we did. And she said, Professor Warren, we've got to stop that awful bill, referring to this bankruptcy bill that's sponsored by the credit card companies. So I left. She went back to Washington, and I heard later from someone who was a White House staffer that there were skid marks in the hallways when Mrs. Clinton got back as people reversed direction on that bankruptcy bill.
They were supporting the industry, and because of her...
President Clinton had been showing that this was another way that he could be helpful to business. It wasn't a very high visibility bill. And when Mrs. Clinton came back with a little better understanding of how it all worked, they reversed course, and they reversed course fast. And indeed, the proof is in the pudding. The last bill that came before President Clinton was that bankruptcy bill that was passed by the House and the Senate in 2000, and he vetoed it. And in her autobiography, Mrs. Clinton took credit for that veto, and she rightly should. She turned around a whole administration on the subject of bankruptcy. She got it.
And then?
One of the first bills that came up after she was Senator Clinton was the bankruptcy bill. This is a bill that's like a vampire. It will not die, right? There's a lot of money behind it. And
her husband had vetoed.
Her husband had vetoed it very much at her urging.
And?
She voted in favor of it.
Why?
As Senator Clinton, the pressures are very different. It's a well-financed industry. A lot of people don't realize that the industry that gave the most money to Washington over the past few years was not the oil industry, was not pharmaceuticals. It was consumer credit products. Those are the people the credit card companies have been giving money, and they have influence.
And Mrs. Clinton was one of them, as senator.
She has taken money from the groups, and more to the point, She worries about them as a constituency.
So what does this mean, though, to these people, these millions of people out there whom the politicians cavort in front of as favoring the middle class and then are beholden to the powerful interests that undermine the middle class? What does it say about politics today?
You know, this is the scary part about democracy today. We're talking again about the impact of money. The credit industry on this bankruptcy bill has spent tens of millions of dollars lobbying, and as their profits grow, they just throw more into lobbying for how they can get laws that will make it easier and easier and easier to drain money out of the pockets of middle-class families.
And you really think these two witches have America's best interests in mind? It's time to clean house. That includes the George-Soros Billionaire Club, which takes us up to the 50,000-foot level. George, stop trying to play God with the future of this nation. George, the jig is up. America is waking up to you. You are public enemy number one. You are in just such hot water on Twitter. We are letting you know that we know all about your meddling in our national affairs. And once you are in our sights, George, we have you on auto lock. You're not going anywhere. On the election itself, let's be crystal clear here. Mr. Trump will not win the election if the voting machine issue is not resolved. I keep coming back to that. See, we all know there's going to be fraud and theft in the election. We know it won't be fair. We know illegals will vote, that dead people will vote, that people without IDs will vote multiple times. This is almost a given. How much will it affect the outcome? That's another story. It could be minimal, marginal. But the globalists have been known to get their puppet in. Flashback to the Bush-Gore election, or the recent steal at the DNC nomination. The thing that concerns us the most is rigged voting machines. What happens to the ballots after they are fed into the machines? What happens to electronic votes once in the system? What will the software do with the votes? That's the issue, and so far no one has given us a credible solution. If you want more people to come out to vote, then guarantee them the count will not be rigged. The election will not be stolen. This is for all the marbles. This is for the whole enchilada. We need to know before we get into this, ahead of time, not at the last minute, not after the fact. We need to know if the machines are fixed or not. Because even if they're pre-tested, what guarantee do you have the machines won't be tampered on the day of the election or remotely adjusted? It's a huge problema. Don't skirt the issue. Don't sidetrack. Don't beat around the bush. It should be front and center. There will not be another election for us to get it right. It's like we're stepping into a rocket ship with a one-way ticket, and we got to make sure the ignition switch works, or all hell will break loose if it doesn't. So we need straight answers. The second issue is, what do you expect us to do if we discover the election has been stolen? Do you want us to just sit back? Just roll over? We have a social contract that sets the terms and conditions of your employment. We are the employers of the federal government. The contract is called the Constitution. We have available to us the 9th and 10th Amendments to fall back onto. That means the use of force if necessary. And if we get cheated, there's no option that's off the table. You cheat us this time around, you will never hear the end of it. Americans are not in the mood. We are not in the mood. Get that through your thick skulls. All right, speaking of Americans, I am so sick and tired of hyphenated Americans, calling themselves Asian Americans, Afro Americans, and Italian Americans. You're either American or you're not. If you want to show respect for your roots, how about saying, I am American with Italian roots. I am an American with African roots. But first and foremost, you are American. Unity trumps diversity every time. The more you try to squeeze in there your uniqueness, your diversity, your ethnic background, your roots, the more diversity you create, okay? If you want unity, just use one word. I'm an American. That's it. Period. And how about becoming 100% American while you're at it? Instead of watered-down versions of Americans, like 10% Americans, diluted Americans. Americans in name only. Because being born here is not enough. There have been many traitors that were born in America. You should be able to sit down with a pen and paper and from memory write down a summary of each of the 7 articles of the Constitution with all their respective sections. You should also be able to summarize all 27 amendments. You should be able to give the Pledge of Allegiance. You should be able to sing 3 verses of the Star-Spangled Banner. You should be able to draw a timeline of the major wars in America that America has fought and why they were fought. And if you really, really want to shine, you should know all the presidents of the United States, from first to last. That last one I'm working on. I'm not quite there yet. So if you can do all that, that's what I would call a 100% American. Take 10 minutes each day and start learning about the sacrifices people have made to make this nation what it is today. Study the Constitution. If you don't like reading, go to YouTube. Look at documentaries. It's all there. Globalists would rather you don't know anything about your history or civics. They prefer you don't know that it's the people who are the employers of their elected officials. It goes counter to their agenda. You know, for George Soros and all the other masters of the universe, there's a special kind of hell. I'm going to zoom out to 200,000 feet here. I want to digress on purpose. I want to explain to Mr. Soros, Hillary, and all the other sycophants what kind of hell is waiting for them. Okay, let me describe hell for you because I kind of had that experience way back when I was not at my best, let's put it this way. So you can also get a preview of what to expect when you end up there. You see, for now, your minds cannot process guilt, remorse, mental anguish, because Satan has turned off that switch, which we call your conscience. That's why you can laugh like sociopaths at the most inappropriate times. That's why you lie so much. And for all your evil acts, instead of remorse, you're experiencing an exhilarating high of power and ecstasy. That is your current Pavlovian feedback mechanism. The more vile and gruesome and inhumane your actions, the more pleasure you experience. It's a demonic type of pleasure. It's the lie that Lucifer fed you, that you will always feel this ecstasy in the hereafter and that he will make you immortal. Of course, it's a gross lie from the father of lies. Because after you die, that switch that we call conscience, that was turned off, will be turned back on. And you will begin to feel all the pain and remorse you would have felt while alive. You will feel regret for not having followed God's ways when he gave you chance after chance after chance. You will feel this regret and mental anguish nonstop, every instant of your eternal existence, where time is no more. It's not something you can turn off and say, now I'm done with that, let me think of something else, or let me watch a movie. No. It's like a needle that is stuck on a record player. The more you think about it, the more you think about it. And that lie that Satan fed you, that you could become as God, will now also swirl in your mind forever. You will know you have been duped, you have been fooled, and you will know that your chance to be in heaven, where you could have enjoyed peace and joy, is forever lost. You had your chance and you squandered it. Plus, you will also discover that your will, your free agency, is no longer your own. You have no free agency. You cannot think for yourself. Your mind is actually controlled. Satan is now your master. He dictates to you what you can think or not think. Add it all up, and you have a glimpse of what hell is like. Okay? I had to get that off my chest. Back to 50,000 feet. When the rats are cornered and running out of time in their final grab for America, the final push to turn America into a banana republic and put us into a tailspin, the rats will also use every available trick in their toolkit. So what could they do? They could crash the market. Soros has already shorted the S&P index to the tune of $2 billion. So likelihood of a market crash in October, 90%. They can also pull the political levers, as they're doing now. They may be planning for an American spring. They want to pit the Republicans against the Democrats, blacks against whites. They want to see people ransack in Washington, D.C. They want to see the U.S. fall apart, balkanize into small pieces, into states, and then later into regions, so that they can then come back and pillage our resources. They can also create a world war. Okay, as we speak, there's high tension levels between the Ukraine and Russia, between NATO and Russia, between China and the rest of the world. So they could create a false flag to provoke China and Russia. And before we know it, we could have a nuclear exchange. Putin's well aware of all this, and he's warning us. He's been warning us for the last 6 months. He's telling us, stop poking the bear. They could also detonate an EMP above the United States and blame the Russians. So that would disable all electricity for weeks. That could start World War III. As we speak, 40,000 troops are lined up along the Ukrainian border. The son of Joe Biden has taken over a $5 billion gas processing plant in the Ukraine. It's called pillaging, folks. There is sabotage of water filtration and gas power plants in the Crimea and on Russian territory. There are flashes of violence in Poland and the Ukraine. Ukrainians and Russians are firing at each other. Putin is warning NATO to back off. And our media is continuing to demonize Putin. Because you see, war is good for business. It's good for the banksters. It's good for the military security industrial complex. According to Pentagon sources, there are 8 staging areas that are being prepared by Russia along the Ukrainian border. See, this is all part of the fear porn propaganda used against Russia. Because Russia really has no intentions of getting into a nuclear war, World War III. Plus we know we have the audio tapes that Victoria Nuland was interfering in Ukrainian politics. This is all on record. But they're always pushing on Putin. They're pushing for a war, and maybe the cancellation of the election. They forget that the truth is leaking, the truth is out, that we know the globalists use the United States to fund proxies which will do their dirty work. Okay, the American government has funded Al-Qaeda in Libya to overthrow Gaddafi. Has funded Ukrainian rebel groups to take over the sale of natural gas to Europe, thanks to Victoria Nuland. Hillary Clinton fought to keep Boko Haram off the terror list because we fund them, as we fund Al-Shabaab. So as we speak, U.S. Special Forces in Syria, who are there to advise Kurdish YPG forces who are fighting against the Assad regime, our U.S. forces came under fire from Syrian regime airstrikes. How can you blame Assad for pushing back, okay? After the attack, the United States told Russian forces, not Syrian forces, they told Russian forces that the United States Air Force would retaliate if coalition forces were under attack. So the only reason the globalists want him out is for the oil pipeline. I'm talking about Assad. They want Assad out to get an oil pipeline through and to install a Rothschild central bank. His central bank is his own. It's nationally owned. So what we are to the globalists is just a military muscle to do their dirty work. Do you understand this, Americans? Do you understand it? Meanwhile, Obama is playing golf. China is threatening war with the whole world, not just the United States. Sometimes I look into Benjamin Fulford's website, and he is saying that according to his sources, China is backing Hillary. and that she will help China become the dominant superpower after she is elected, after a war with China where the United States loses. Do you understand now why she's wearing these Mao outfits? Can you see how it is to China's advantage to not have fair trade with Donald Trump as president? Why it would tank their economy if fair trade was implemented? So I have to thank Alex Jones and Matt Drudge for all these news, for the breaking news. Alex has been on the tip of the spear for over 20 years. He's a true patriot. My hat's off to him. So it looks like the plan is to spark a world war. You have to remember, the Luciferians want to usher in the reign of Lucifer. Now I'm going to 200,000 feet, okay? I may lose some of you. And that's okay. I don't mind. I know there's going to be a remnant here, some special people who are going to wake up to this diabolical scheme. The globalists want to usher in the age of Lucifer, the light bearer. He will come in the form of a Satan-possessed proxy, an antichrist that will promise peace and prosperity for the entire planet. They would rather have the people beg for that peace after a cataclysmic shakeup, a world war. Now it gets complicated. The Muslims also have in their eschatology, in their end-time prophecies, a prophecy that the last Imam, the last great teacher, will arrive to usher in an era of peace. This Imam in their books will come after a global war. So you see how their fanaticism is playing into the hands of the globalists? Then we have the Jews. They're waiting for their Messiah. The Old Testament tells them he will come when Israel's back is up against the wall. You see, evil always likes to pretend it's the good guy. It's always busy doing good. All these Luciferian billionaires, ask them how many charities they have funded. They're all wonderful humanitarians, don't you know? It's their way of keeping karma off their backs while they do their evil deeds with impunity. But after they die, that shield of phony philanthropy, that insurance policy will no longer be in effect. It will have lapsed. And karma will swing into full force. Then they'll discover they were being played for fools by Satan. So that's at 200,000 feet. There's more. The Illuminati, there's another group that seeks to end nations and bring in Lucifer's reign. Many others have predicted end times, and they're not all from the Bible. For example, Albert Pike. Albert Pike was an attorney, soldier, a writer, and a Freemason. Albert Pike is the only Confederate military officer with an outdoor statue in Washington, D.C. He could read and write in 16 languages. He's a 33-degree Mason. He was one of the founders and head of the ancient accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. And he was the Grand Commander of North American Freemasonry from 1859 and retained that position until his death in 1891. In 1869, he was a top leader in the Knights of the KKK. Pike was said to be a Satanist who indulged in the occult. He apparently possessed a bracelet which he used to summon Lucifer, with whom he had constant communication. He was the Grand Master of a Luciferian group known as the Order of the Palladium, or Sovereign Council of Wisdom, which had been founded in Paris in 1737. Pike also worked very closely with Giuseppe Mazzini of Italy, who was a 33-degree Mason, who became head of the Illuminati in 1834, and who founded the Mafia in 1860. Pike, together with Mazzini and Lord Henry Palmerston of England, who is also 33-degree Mason, and along with Otto von Bismarck from Germany, also a 33-degree Mason, intended to use the Palladian rite to create a satanic umbrella group that would tie all the Masonic groups together. I'm giving you this backdrop on Pike so that you don't get freaked out here when I give you what's coming up next. So you get a sense of who he was. Pike, who was a Freemason, was introduced to the Illuminati by Adam Weishaupt. Weishaupt formed the Order of Perfectibilists on May 1st, 1776. And to this day, May 1st celebrated as May Day throughout many Western countries. That group became later known as the Illuminati, a secret society whose name means enlightened ones. Although the order was founded to provide an opportunity for the free exchange of ideas, Weishaupt's background as a Jesuit seems to have influenced the actual character of the society, such that the express aim of this order became to abolish Christianity for one, and to overturn all civil government. So here's the punchline. Are you ready? Pike had a vision from Satan on August 15th, 1871. He wrote down that vision in a letter to Mazzini, Giuseppe Mazzini. And in that letter, he describes the forces that would set in motion the three great world wars. This letter some have denounced because in it Pike refers to social movements before they even existed, such as Nazism and Zionism. But then again, by way of rebuttal, we know that Satan knows the future before it happens and can dictate the exact terminology in a vision to someone like Pike. So what does this letter have to say about conditions preceding World War III? Here's how it reads. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agentur, that's another term for agents, infiltrators, by the agents of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam and political Zionism mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere the citizens, obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries, will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement, which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. What does that have to do with anything? George Soros, in an interview with a German news outlet, Bild, B-I-L-D, said back in September 2014, quote, I am going to bring down America by funding black hate groups. We'll put them in a mental trap and make them hate white people. The black community is the easiest to manipulate. So why is he still around? Why is he still the venerable George Soros, the philanthropist / humanitarian? And why is Obama still a free man? He lied. It's now proven that he sent $400 million to Iran in exchange for hostages. He has repeatedly lied to the American people. He is a shill, a puppet, a Manchurian candidate, a tool of the Muslim globalist movement. Here he is in a video clip telling us that he is training ISIL, and he's telling us this with U.S. generals in the background. standing beside him, behind him. Okay, as if nothing is going wrong here. It's like a serial killer telling you, you know what, this afternoon I'm going to be kind of busy. I don't think we can go to the gym. I've got to do the laundry, then I got to do some shopping, and then I've got to go kill that girl that's down the street. But then after that, I may have to visit my mother. So can we do the gym some other time? You see what I'm saying? They're just slipping in their poisonous plans, their cyanide pills. They sugarcoat them, and we swallow them. We got to wake up, America. We really got, enough of this kabuki theater. You got to wake up. You've got to wake up. So here he is talking about he's talking about the fact that he's actually training ISIL.
Moving too slowly, but the fall of Ramadi has galvanized the Iraqi government. So with the additional steps I ordered last month, we're speeding up training of ISIL forces, including volunteers from Sunni tribes in Anbar province.
So what more evidence do we need, people? Why is this scumbag sitting in the White House? Can anybody tell me? Can the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff tell me? Can any of the sheriffs? Sheriff Arpaio, why is Obama still in the White House? Sheriff Clark, why is he still in the White House? I'm going to read once again what I wrote about arresting Obama, and I wrote this back in June 2016, June 19. I said, we are done with Obama. He can't remain in office one more day. We don't want him impeached. We want him arrested and tried for treason. As per Article 3, Section 3 of the Constitution, it takes only 2 witnesses to accuse him of treason. We have dozens of witnesses and no lack of evidence. No grand jury is needed to determine if he has committed a high crime. Neither the House nor the Senate need to be involved. Obama has stomped on the Constitution, has fast-tracked treasonous treaties, and signed unconstitutional executive orders. Continuity of government has shelved the rights of the people, and therefore we, the people, will decide his punishment by plebiscite. That's right. We're invoking Amendments 9 and 10. We are fast-tracking this. We are overruling Article 3, Section 3, last clause that gives Congress the power to determine the punishment. As the employer of this treasonous commander-in-chief, we want him arrested and court-martialed forthwith. As per Amendments 9 and 10, we, the people, reserve rights and powers which come into effect when our employee, the Lame House and Senate, has failed us. We are left without other recourse in trying to establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Our government has failed us miserably. We have an ISIS collaborator posing as President of the United States, who is nothing more than a Marxist tool trying to destroy this nation. And we can't wait for his term to expire or for the next terrorist attack. He will most likely do the greatest damage as a lame duck president. Arrest Barack Hussein Obama and get him into court for trial. The people, as employers of this government, demand it, order us. Mess with the American people and you'll be messing with God himself, from whom we derive our liberty. It takes only 2 witnesses to initiate the process as per Article 3, Section 3, which says no person shall be convicted of treason unless on the testimony of 2 witnesses to the same covert act or on confession in open court. There is no need for a petition or for impeachment proceedings. America will have hell to pay if Obama is not arrested, tried, and convicted. Get it done now with all due haste. And I signed it, Paul Adams. My question is, if all it takes is 2 witnesses and an arrest warrant, why is no one arresting him? Can we get this done? Let's pray for Mr. Trump, for his family, and for America. God bless them all. Till next time.